We have multiple Minnesota Wild updates which dropped today, including a whole lot of injury updates, including one with Zeev Buium. We're going to be breaking that down and going over what that is, while also taking a look at the other options that the defense will have, with, of course, a few players missing, and finally going over one of the biggest opportunities in the career of Liam Ohgren thus far. We have a lot to break down today, ladies and gentlemen, as a lot more stuff is coming out through training camp. We're going to be breaking down here in this video. Before we do, though, do me a big favor if you can, and haven't already, and hit that sub button. We're very close to 2K. Your support's been phenomenal. I appreciate all of you guys. And in the midst of all this Kirill Kaprizov news, we still have training camp to take a big focus on. But we need to get straight into this video, and let's go straight pretty much into the first topic, which is not the greatest situation right now for the Minnesota Wild. And Sarah McLean tweeted this out yesterday evening, saying the few updates from day 2 of Wild training camp. Zeev Buium, upper body injury from Thursday's session, did not practice today, but Coach John Hynes doesn't believe it's a serious issue. Nico Sturm maintenance also didn't skate. Now, those were yesterday's updates, so taking a look at today, Nico Sturm was back, but Michael Russo was saying no Zeev Buium for their second day in a row. Now, this is a bit of a, not necessarily a scary update at this point just yet, but one that we're going to have to keep a close eye on, because obviously Zeev Buium, yet to play an NHL regular season game, made his debut in the playoffs last year, is projected and will certainly be a major part of this Minnesota Wild team heading into next season. Now, the big part of him not skating right now with that injury which occurred in practice is there's going to be a lot of movement happening on the defensive side of things, and a few more players are going to be given a huge opportunity for that exact reason. And, kind of just jumping into that here in a moment, of course, Bjorn Brodin is already out, and having Zeev Buium here, if he is out long-term, I don't think we have a timeline yet. This is something that could be a pretty big issue heading to the start of the regular season. Now, going in as well to what John Hynes had to say about the issue, it is a very interesting quote, the way it's worded, in my opinion. He's going to start skating here. He's missed 2 days now, so he's missing some important things. Back on the ice Sunday, whether that's with the injured guys or what else, but we've got to get him up and running, and he's got to get himself up and running as well. Now, this last part is very interesting to me, especially the way that John Hynes worded it, that he's got to get himself up and running as well. And the style of injury, of course, which is upper body, don't really make sense to me with this kind of reaction. It almost seems to me like John Hynes is saying that he's willingly not participating, which we can, pretty positively say that is not the issue. He certainly is dealing with something. But the fact that John Hynes saying, he got to do this, he's got to get himself up and running, whether that means it is something that is keeping him out of, just all physical activity, or if it's something that will keep him off the ice for a little bit. Of course, he has not skated with the team in a practice, but he may have skated by himself. But it really, to me, at least, just seems like a weird thing to say as your coach is coming out and, saying you have to get him up and running, and he has to get himself up and running. So I want to know what you guys think about that here in the comments below, or if I'm just crazy in thinking the way that it was kind of vocalized was just not at all what I was thinking. But giving that option now for a lot of other players, with Zeev Buium being out, Jacob Middleton, David Jiricek right now are projected on the left side here from Puckpedia, and a lot of stuff can change here. Of course, Jonas Brodin is out, as I mentioned, and will miss the start of the season from what we've been hearing. That gives an option to a few other players. One being Jack Johnson, who's currently signed to a PTO, and two, Carson Lambos, a player that we've spoken about a little bit, 2021 draft pick that has yet to play in the NHL. Now, Carson Lambos is a player that I've been really high on for a couple years now, but the longer and longer that we wait, really to me seems like it's less likely that he does get into this team rather than having a trade, because Carson Lambos, of course, is a very solid defenseman. You have a guy like Zeev Buium, who at 19 years old and at the pick he was a couple years ago, he is, the next level defenseman. He is a guy that will not spend any time in the AHL, at least, right away. He may spend there, but he will spend not too much time there, if at all. And you're going through that. Carson Lambos was someone who developed a bit more, but at his level, he can certainly crack this roster. I think this is the year that we're going to see him up here for however many games it will be. But going on the PTO side of things, as well as Brett Leeson, Jack Johnson is another option to get into this lineup, and he is someone that coming out of camp and coming out of training camp and preseason, I think is a very good option, especially with the way that this team is structured right now. You want to have as much depth and experience on your lineup as possible, and something that we have spoken about here in the AHL is that a lot of these players never learned to win, because you go and take a look here at the AHL roster, we know that there was a lot of players there that were on terrible teams. going down through the AHL. So you're putting out here a guy like Jack Johnson, somebody who's been across the NHL with multiple teams, very, very high amount of games. I can't remember the exact amount, but I know it's a lot, and he's going to be setting a record soon, I believe, for his games played, but he is someone that will bring that experience to the NHL level. And I mean, when you do go and take a look at the defensemen here, you have that in Zach Bogosian. You have that in Jacob Middleton. You have that in Jared Spurgeon. You have that in Brodin. That's about it on the defensive side of things at this point. With the, the younger aspect of this team really being pretty prominent over the next couple of years, especially with Brodin, Faber, and Jiricek, going to be the highlights of this defensive core for years and years to come. But you're taking a look at other guys like Carson Lambos, Jack Pert, a lot of these other players that are going to be in the situation upcoming that we're now currently seeing Carson Lambos in. And, even David Jiricek, who the Wild went out and traded an incredible amount of assets for, but he's been up and down a little bit also with dealing with injuries. So there's going to be a lot of options here. But adding right now a Jack Johnson here with the experience that he has to a depleted defensive core, I think is just a very good idea. And he's going to be someone that is going to be, in my opinion at least, favored a little bit more over Carson Lambos to start the season. Now, whether that changes later on, it certainly could, but I still think that right now he is a very important piece of this. But moving on as well, going into that, I want to know what you think about the roster on the defensive side of things, how that all works out. But we do go take a look here at Jack Johnson as well. We take a look at him with David Jiricek and Bogosian with Carson Lambos. That's what they're looking at. They're really taking a look at how things are going to be structured on that defense. They're looking at, I think, all possibilities. So something to very much keep an eye on over the next couple of days and weeks as we go throughout the list here of games in the preseason. But going on as well from Joe Smith, this is another player that really has a good option to make this due to an unfortunate injury. And Joe Smith put this out. Liam Ohgren said he feels more ready than ever to make the jump to the NHL. Knows this is a big opportunity online with Tarasenko and Eriksson Ek, while Zuccarello is out now. And as you saw there, on the line with Tarasenko and Joel Eriksson Ek, and having him slot in on the second line fills that hole that I've been talking about where you have Marcus Johansson. Marcus Johansson, yes, he's a good player. He's not really a second-line player at this point in his career. Definitely a bottom six, but if you need him for a game or two, it could work. But Liam Ohgren, a guy at 21 years old, who is really getting ready to crack this roster. We saw the evolution of his play last year, more so in the AHL than the NHL, but he had his good sample size of games last year. 24 games, 2 goals, 3 assists was a very slow start for him. But down with Iowa, 37 points in 41 games. And when we see that translate over to his NHL game, it's going to be a big opportunity for Liam Ohgren. And I certainly think that this is the year that we see him literally break into the NHL and stay there at this point, especially with what we've been seeing so far over the offseason and in training camp. I know it's only a few days in, but he has a different mindset. I feel like that's something a lot of people are really recognizing now. Given the opportunity that he has not being on a bottom six line, he's going to be getting an option with the top dogs. I think that's really where he's going to strive, especially with people being able to keep up to his pace. So this is what I'm very excited for. And of course, the defensive situation as well, but given the scenario that Liam Ohgren's in, how much of a fan I am of him, I think it's a great opportunity for him here, heading into training camp and really to go prove himself in this preseason. So let me know what you think about that. But that is all I have here in this video. If you enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out, though. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.